We're back, this time with the Abomination review for the Darkest Dungeon. We'll be talking about a lot of things like his stats, his skills, his camp skills, his resistances, his trinkets, and his best partners. Basically just everything that I can think of for the Abomination for Darkest Dungeon. So let's actually go through his stats first. Let's pull up our spreadsheet. Alright, so here's our spreadsheet. You can see right here, I've extracted the Abomination's details and put them below here. Next to the averages of all the characters in the game, you can see just as a comparison, there's the Abomination, and it's the exact same stats. So let's go through his stats one by one and see what he's good at, what he's bad at, and what we can do with him, kind of. So we see right away the Abomination has just slightly above average HP, and what that really actually means is that he's tied for 5th place in terms of HP numbers, but you see this huge gap here between the Arbalist and Man-at-Arms and the Man-at-Arms and Crusader. So he's actually one of the higher HP units in the game, but he's actually still more toward the average. He's got a slightly above average dodge, not too notable, basically average. Speed is higher than average. He's tied for 2nd place with like 4 or 5 other people. Crit is on the lower end, it's below average. And his damage, though, is very above average, actually. 10 to 20 is a lot higher than 8 to 15 and a half. And if you actually look at it here, he's actually 2nd place behind the Leper in terms of raw damage. This actually is a very misleading stat, and I'll tell you why later when we go through his skills. But he's not actually a very good damage dealer in his human form. Oh yeah, and we'll talk about his human/beast form in a bit. His stun resist is above average. That's okay, only slightly though. His blade resist is actually the highest in the game, and that's pretty important because it makes him kind of durable compared to a lot of other characters. His disease resist is the lowest in the game. Not that important. I don't care too much. I hate diseases, but they're easily treatable. His move resist is average. That's okay. His bleed resist is average. That's okay. His debuff resist is one of the lowest in the game. That part sucks a little bit because he is locked into a position 2. He's locked in as a position 2 character only. So being a position 2 character only means that you'll get hit by the cultist brawlers a lot, which do have that debuff ready for you, and so being unable to resist that debuff is pretty bad. It's a plus stress debuff, so Abomination will take more stress. He has ways to deal with it in the form of Absolution, but it's just not. I don't want to be forced to use Absolution to deal with that. So this part really annoys me. Trap disarm is below average. That's fine. We can use someone else to disarm traps. His movement is 1 forward and 2 back. So the developers have designed the Abomination to work in positions 2 or 3 in the human form and only 1 or 2 in beast form. So when you get shuffled into 4, being able to move forward 2 would have been very nice, because you can get into a position where you can use beast form next turn very well. But only being able to move 1 position forward is therefore very annoying. This is a very bad thing for the Abomination. And being able to move 2 back is good, though. It gives you a flexibility to determine where you want to be, / if you want to help people get back into their ideal positions. This is very good. Overall, let's look at his stats, right? We've got okay durability, further backed up by a good blight resist and below average bleed resist, but we can work with that. These are okay stats in terms of durability, pretty decently strong. Good speed, that's very important for a damage dealer that he is as the beast form, and it's very good for the stunner that he is as a human form. So I like this stat a lot for the Abomination specifically. Crit is below average, which is annoying because he could have been a very good damage dealer in his beast form, but the crit does bring him down a little bit. It's consistently higher, but I do want those times where I do spike up in damage with the crit. So this part is a little sad to me too. The rest of these stats are, I've basically covered them. So let's switch over to see what his skills are like. So this is the Abomination skills. Of note is that he starts off, when you recruit him from the stagecoach, he starts off with all of his skills unlocked. All 7 of them are unlocked. And during the battle, during any combat, he actually has access to all 7 of his skills. And that's thanks to this first skill called Transform. So when he's a human, which is his default form, whenever you enter battle, he'll be a human. He has access to these 3 skills: Manacles, Beast's Bile, and Absolution. And these 3 skills are locked behind his beast form. To access these 3 skills, you have to click Transform, and when you click Transform, it will not cost you an action during your turn. It will just transform you, and then it'll give you access right away to these 3 skills. So that would be Rake, Rage, and Slam. It'll give you access to these 3 skills, and then you could use a skill right on the same turn as you transform. Yeah. So let's go through each of these skills for real, and see what it's like. What skills are good. You're actually running all 7 of them, so there's no ideal set for him. But there are skills that are going to be better than others that I recommend using, and there are going to be skills which I don't recommend using at all. Yeah, so let's talk about Transform, which is limited to 2 uses per battle. What that means is you can only transform into the beast form and untransform back into the human form once in the battle. So if you can't flicker in and out of being a beast in the middle of a fight. That's what that uses per battle means. As a human, so when you use this skill as a human, right. So obviously you get the 3 skills you get as a human, and Transform is your 4th skill. And as a beast, you get the 3 skills he gets as a beast, with Transform as the 4th skill. So as a human, when you transform, you change to beast mode. You gain 5 speed. You gain a bunch of blight resist, plus 30, and you gain plus 25% damage, and you heal 10 of the Abomination's HP instantly as soon as you click Transform. That's actually pretty good. Being a faster damage dealer is very good as a beast. You're pretty durable, so you shouldn't need too much attention from the Vestal or the Occultist or the other healers. So being fast isn't too bad of a thing there. It is still a little annoying when you are on death's door for some reason and have a dot on you. It is something to consider, but the dot resist that you get from this skill should make it so that you can't blight and you can only be bled. So that right. So plus 30% blight resist on 120% base blight resist anyway brings you up to 150% blight resist, which I believe resists 99% of the things in the game. I think the only thing that can blight you is something in the final fight, the DD4 against the Heart of Darkness. I believe he has the Heart of Darkness has some skill that has 160% blight chance. So you resist all blights in the game, basically, is what this transformation does for 3 turns. And when you transform into a beast, you deal an AoE stress hit. You deal an AoE stress of 8 to your teammates. Not the Abomination specifically, but to the teammates, they each take 8 damage in terms of stress. And every turn that you spend as a beast, it doesn't say this in the tooltip here, but every turn you take as the beast, the Abomination himself takes some stress. I don't know off the top of my head how much stress, but it's definitely a single digit, probably like 5, around that range. And when you hit 100 stress with the Abomination in beast form, and you roll for virtue or affliction, when you become afflicted, you de-transform back into the human form. The game forces you to transform back into the human form, and we'll see what that does right now. So the game forces you to use transform, is what it does. So as a beast, it forces you to use transform. And as a beast, when you use transform, you just change back to human mode. No buffs, no debuffs, nothing. And the other heroes heal 2 stress. So you AoE heal the other heroes for 2 stress. Which means when you transform into a beast, you net deal 6 stress to your companions. This means that it's not really recommended to transform into a beast every single round, every single combat, because you will slowly stress out your team, and that is not ideal. So use this sparingly, but know that when you do use it, you will get extreme damage buffs and have access to his damage range. So let's talk about his human skills first, and then we'll get into the beast ones. Manacles is his first human skill. It can be launched from positions 2 and 3, and can hit positions 1, 2, and 3 on the opponent's side. This is his stun, and it is honestly probably one of the worst stuns in the game. One of the worst stuns in the game. There's probably one more worse than this one. Probably the Crusader's stunning blow is a little worse than this, just because of its range. But essentially, the reason why it's so bad is because it has a base 130% chance to stun only. And that is the lowest in the game. I think that is the only stun in the game that has a 130% chance to stun. All the other stuns either have 140 or 150. So this stun is already starting on a lower benchmark than other stuns are in terms of stunning your enemies. It does, however, have the highest accuracy in the game, and that's very good. I like my stuns hitting my enemies. And it has a very, very tiny crit mod, so it doesn't crit basically at all. 11% is essentially 1 in every 9 hits it'll crit. Basically doesn't crit at all, to be honest. Negative 60% damage mod brings us, let's see, let's do some quick math. So that's 6. So it's about 7 to 12. Am I right? Wait, 7 to 12. Yeah, 7 to 12 damage is what this can do. So it's actually one of the higher damage stuns in the game. So that's pretty good for it. And that's solely because the Abomination just has insane base damage to work off of, so damage mods don't hurt him as much, negative damage mods don't hurt him as much. But I don't really use stuns in order to deal damage. I use stuns in order to stun my enemies, and so that part of Manacles isn't too exciting to me. It's nice to have, obviously. If you're going to offer me more damage on a stun, I'll love it. I won't complain, but having a poor stun chance is not as good. He does have a trinket. He does have a class-specific trinket. Actually, I have it in this file called the Locket of Transference, which increases his stun chance by 20%, which brings him up to 150%, which is the same as some of the other stunners in the game. So even with a trinket, he only gets up to matching other stunners in the game. This is a pretty bad stun. Yeah. For that reason. It does reach into rank 3, so I do have to give it credit for that. And so that part of it I do like, but the stun chance is really just bringing the skill down. Beast Bile. This has the typical AoE problem in the game. AoEs are not that strong. You want to focus people down. You don't want to spread out damage between 2 people and just kind of whittle them down slowly. You want to kill one person for sure to decrease the amount of actions that you're taking from the opponent's team, so that you don't have to heal through as much. It's nice that it splits damage up between 2 and 3, but I really would never. I actually never use this move, except for maybe when I see that I could finish off a position 3 character at the same time as like damaging a position 2 character. It's just not the main move I use as him. His last human skill is Absolution. It can be that's right. It can be launched from position 2 and 3 and can hit. AoE hits 2 and 3 on the opponent's team. And his last skill is Absolution, to be cast in any rank for the Abomination, and it heals 10 stress off of the Abomination and heals 5 HP for the Abomination. Absolution is very nice. After you transform back from a beast into a human, you can heal off all of the stress that you've accumulated while you're in beast form every single turn. For every single turn you've been in beast form, and it's nice when the Abomination gets kind of focused with stress casts, because he can heal himself very efficiently after getting stress casted like that. This is a very good skill. Of the skills that I spam the most as a human, definitely Manacles is up top. Even though it's a bad stun, it is a stun, and stuns are very good in the game. And Absolution is the other one I spam a lot, just to keep him up in tip-top shape. This increases his durability by a lot, because he can heal himself and kind of babysit himself. So healers don't actually have to help him, and if they do help him, he becomes full health very rapidly. Alright, so let's look at his beast skills. Rake. Rake is only launchable from positions 1 and 2, and only hits 1 and 2. Oh yeah, that's right. That's the reason that I say he's a position 2 lock character. Because his human skills are 2 and 3 only, as you can see. These are his human skills that really matter about rank. And we'll just mouse over these real quick, and we'll go over them later. They're generally the ones that you want to use, which is only Rage, to be honest, is only launchable from rank 1 and 2. So he's really locked into rank 1 and 2 if you want to make use of his beast form, which is very important. The only we'll go as we go through the skills, you'll notice that I'm not really excited about any of these skills. It's just the fact that he has access to both utility and the beast damage at the same time that excites me about Abomination. He's kind of like, what do you need right now? And you can fill that in with either human form or beast form. So yeah, let's keep going on Rake though. Rake is a typical AoE. Suffers the same problems as a typical AoE. This time it doesn't even reach into rank 3 though. So you're AoEing the front 2 ranks, so it better be something good, because the front 2 ranks have a ton of protection, which which means they don't care if you deal damage to them because they'll just suck it up with their protection. 110 accuracy, pretty good. Damage mod of -50, pretty bad. Brings this skill down to dealing only 5 to 10 damage. Crit mod's very, very low. You'll never crit with this. And Rake, it buffs... Using an instance of Rake will buff later instances of Rake by 25% extra damage. That looks really enticing. It looks really amazing. But the damage is all very backloaded. So this skill actually is very bad because you're dealing small increments of damage in the beginning, and then at the end you're dealing large increments of damage. And it's not even that large, because let me explain to you how the damage formula works. Crit mods are applied additively, and any buff other than crit mods are applied multiplicatively, and the crit mod is applied additively first before anything else is done. So what that means is, right away you take his damage and you're gonna have it, which means this Rake without any buffs will deal 5 to 10. And then after that, you can apply the Rake buffs to the 5 to 10. 5 to 10 is what you're applying it to. So if you're applying a 25% damage buff to the 5 to 10, you're really changing 5 to 10 to dealing 7 to 13. And that's very unexciting. You've only increased roughly 2 to 3 points of damage using Rake once for the next usage of Rake. This buff only stacks 4 times, so you can only really have 3 stacks of it on, and you can only really abuse it 3 stacks at a time, which means you can only get a 75% bonus from it, which at most means that this Rake itself deals, so 75% of 5 to 10, which means it deals, I can't do math, so roughly 8 or 9 to 18. 9 to 18 is the maximum damage capability of Rake to AoE targets, which is nice, but 9 to 18, which is only slightly above the average of 8 to 15.5. So it takes you 4 turns of using Rake before you get up to just slightly above average. Terrible skill, don't use it. There is one situation where you use it, which is against the Shambler tentacles. If you can get this racking a few times, it can clear the tentacles by itself pretty consistently. So that is the only time you should use it. Other than that, don't use it. Rage is the best skill you can use as a beast abomination, and that's because it's a skill that reaches into rank 3, and it's a good damaging skill that reaches into rank 3. The reason why it's good is because it has 11.5% crit, which means roughly you get 17 crit out of this, which, if I do my math right now, is about a 1 out of 6. It's about 1 out of 6 chance to crit. So 1 out of 6 times you're critting, and you're going to apply the Abomination's crit buff, which is plus 20% damage. So 1 out of 6 times, this is one of the Abomination's best crit moves. This is the Abomination's best crit move, and it's in his beast form where you're already wanting to deal damage. So when you crit, you're going to deal a lot of damage, and you're going to apply the crit buff of extra damage next turn to yourself, which is even better for dealing damage. That's a very good crit buff for him, because when you want to deal damage, you get more of it. And Rage is very good at dealing damage. The only problem with it, though, is it does have low accuracy. It has the lowest accuracy in the game, one of the lowest accuracies in the game. The lowest accuracy is actually Leper at like either 95 or 100. 105, though, is the next lowest thing. So it is a little inconsistent. You might have to run accuracy trinkets on him. So look out for that. Man, even his best skill is neutered by some kind of nerf to it in terms of accuracy in this case. Slam. Slam you should never use because it doesn't reach into rank 3 like Rage does, and it doesn't have that crazy crit modifier that Rage does. Really what you should be using Slam for is if you find yourself in position 3, shuffled into position 3 somehow, or knocked back into position 3, you can slam forward and do something while you are moving forward instead of just moving forward manually. Although this is infinitely inferior to Rage when in positions 1 and 2. This is something you can use when you're playing with an A-bomb that starts in position 3, but if you look at it, this is so much more inferior to Rage that when you need to transform into damage dealing A-bomb, the fact that you would have to slam forward first is so unenticing. So that's why I find that he's locked in position 2. We're not even going to talk about this stuff, the other stuff, the other parts of slam. It's just not good. Don't try and use it. Don't put yourself in a position where you're trying to use it. All right, let's talk about his camp skills. Anger management, self only, plus 20 stress, all companions minus 10 stress, costs 3. So the overall effective expected value out of this is very clear. You're healing only 10 stress across your party, which seems very bad for 3 camp points. But actually though, it's not as bad because you're casting stress onto the Abomination, who can heal it very easily with Absolution. So anger management is really essentially saying, find 2 turns later where you can Absolution, which is a very easy task. If you can find those 2 turns later on to cast Absolution, you've healed 30 stress across your party. That's a pretty good camp skill. I like being able to move my stress around onto the Abomination and away from my other characters. Psych Up is a self-only buff for 25% damage for 4 battles. And it does have this downside of casting AoE stress to your team. And, religious. This is the first mention of the word religious. There are 4 characters in the game which are considered religious. That would be the Crusader, the Vestal, the Leper, and the Flagellant. So these 4 are considered they are considered religious. So if you have religious characters on the team, they will take 20 stress instead of 10, which is really bad considering if you just listen to me listing off these characters. Vestal is the best healer in the game. We have a camp skill that actively desynergizes with the Vestal. So if we ever want to cast this, the Vestal will take more stress. That's very bad. We have a Crusader also, which is an okay fieldable unit that finds his way into a lot of teams sometimes. And we are casting AoE extra stress onto Crusaders. And Flagellant also is a very good unit to use, and we're casting extra stress onto him. So this camp skill, although is very powerful, it limits your team a lot. And it kind of sets some stricter rules or punishes you harder for running those religious characters, which are some of the better characters in the game. Crusader not so much, but the other 2, the Flagellant and the Vestal are very good. Oh, the Leper is bad. Don't even run the Leper, by the way. So this skill, although it's exciting, does cause problems. The Quickening is a camp skill for 3, that gives the Abomination plus 4 speed. So plus 4 speed is very nice for the Abomination. He's already pretty fast, and faster stunners are very good. The problem with having more speed is obviously always the awkward situation of dotting plus being on Death's Door, but your Abomination should never really be on Death's Door between Absolution heals, Transform heals, and just being... Oh, and also you shouldn't have dots on him because his Blight resist is so high that you really only have to manage his Bleed resist. Being bled, you'll notice right away, and you'll know to Absolution through that. So the downsides of having extra speed don't actually matter too much on the Abomination, and so I love the Quickening, actually. It just gives me a faster stunner or a faster damage dealer, and those are both very good things. Eldritch Blood is self-only. We've got plus 40% Blight and plus 40% Bleed resist. These are insane buffs, and plus 40% disease resist, whatever. These are insane buffs, and for a cost of 3, these are really, really cool. It's just that it's very self-centered. It's a buffer only himself, and it also gives him plus 20% incoming stress. That last tag doesn't really matter too much because, again, we can manage stress with the Abomination through Absolution. Though this skill is very powerful on paper, I've found it not really applicable a lot of the time just because it's too self-centered. It's only for the Abomination when you can do a lot of things with the party instead. Nice skill to have on your bar in case you have extra camp points, but definitely not a skill definitely not a camp skill you'll be clicking right away. So these are the Abomination's trinkets. We talked about the Padlock of Transference. It's actually a very good trinket to run, just to bring his stun chance back to regular. Let's look at his rare, though. His rare is Lock of Fury, and it gives plus 10% damage and plus 3 speed. This is a very good trinket. This is actually very, very powerful. Oh, it also just subtracts 10% max HP from the Abomination, which is, I think, roughly either 4 or 5 HP from him, which is fine. We've already kind of concluded and established that he's pretty durable, especially with the usage of Absolution. We don't really care about this minus HP portion of it. What we do care about is +3 speed, which is very powerful for a damage dealer and a stunner, and +10 damage, which is very powerful for a damage dealer, like the Abomination, with such a huge base damage range. This is a good trinket to run both for his human stun bot form and his beast damage dealing form. This is actually a very good trinket. I would say this is a staple. This and the Padlock of Transference are two trinkets I run in combination with each other in the end game a lot, and I'm pretty happy to do that. All right, so the rare is pretty good. Let's look at the very rare. The very rare, on the contrary, I think is very bad. It's extremely bad. Generally, with the Abomination, you don't want to be forced into a position, or you don't want to run a team comp where he has to transform every combat. So you're trying to actively not transform every combat because it deals AoE stress to the party, and AoE stressing your party is not that like ideal, right? So the idea of this padlock is that this very rare trinket is that you're supposed to deal less AoE stress to your party, which is nice, but let's see how much AoE stress this saves, right? So you deal an AoE stress of 8 to your party when you transform, and it says here minus 40% stress inflicted on party when you transform. So that means upon transformation, instead of dealing 8, you deal it's three stress less, or that rounds up to 4 stress less. So instead of dealing 8, you're dealing 4 to 5 roughly stress to your team. That's not that big of a difference. If you're running a trinket just to save 3 stress per transformation, there are much stronger trinkets than that. Like, I would just rather run, like, if you're running Locket of Fury, I would just rather run another damage trinket over Restraining Padlock. This just does nothing to me. And the transformation stress, this is what I was talking about, how the Abomination takes stress every single round he's in the transformed form of himself. This is not very exciting. You could just heal it off with Absolution in the next fight. Doesn't matter. This just is not impactful enough to be run a lot. Right, so let's try and talk about and walk ourselves through how to build a team comp for the Abomination. Let me just take this off. I don't know why it bothers me so much. So the Abomination, having a way to babysit himself, is pretty good at alleviating a healer's issues. And let's see, there's a healer that we know very well and love a lot with healing issues. He's got reliability issues, the Occultist. He tends to be a good partner for the Abomination because the other healer in the game, the other main healer in the game, is the Vestal, who is a religious character, who we've already talked about has issues with the Abomination's camp skills that he likes to use. Yeah, having the Occultist being... the Occultist is a good partner with the Abomination. And then from here, the Occultist, we have 2 stunners. One of them, obviously the Abomination could be a damage dealer. We have 2 stunners, so we want damage dealers. And we want damage dealers that are backline units. And the ones that come to mind right away are Crusader, which you can slot in the back for Holy Lance. He's one option you can go with. He's probably the best option you can go with, even though he's slow. Other backline damage dealers are Houndmaster. So you can also AoE stress heal with the Houndmaster in order to keep everyone's stress low if the Abomination is transforming a lot. From this position, this is a very good combination, Abomination plus Houndmaster. And we can obviously also scoot out the Crusader for a Arbalist, right? So she, obviously having the Battlefield Bandage healing buff, can buff all 3 of these guys as healing. They each have either a heal or a self-heal. So this is actually a very, very durable comp to run. And it also does have this mini mark core of Arbalist plus Occultist plus Houndmaster. If you want to run the marks, you can do that. I don't like marks, but this is if you like marks, this team's okay. And obviously you can also switch out, like, you could run any 3 of Houndmaster, Arbalist, Crusader in these backlines and be pretty happy with it. Crusader also being a stress healer is very good for the Abomination. although he's a lot less efficient at dealing with the type of stress casts that the Abomination places on you. You can also run the Occultist in 3, so you have access to the Abyssal Artillery on him, which would be this skill. And instead, you can now see that we are suffering from a lack of stuns and damage at the same time, and then you could bring in the Hellion. And then we have a empty slot here in the 4th rank, which again we can fill in with Crusader, Houndmaster, or Arbalist. Where are these guys? Houndmaster, or Arbalist. We don't need the Plague Doctor because we don't need that many stuns. We already have 2 stunners that are fieldable and usable. So wait, let me just build one comp. Let me just put this on the screen as a comp you can try. Yeah, this is nice. Has good reach, has good everything. Stuns, heals, stress heals. Right. So overall, let's do a conclusion of the Abomination before I end this video. What rank do I give him? Right. So overall, he's got very good stats across the board. It's awkward to kind of use his damage, his excellent damage range as his human form, so you have to transform to do that. When you transform, you deal stress. He's got poor moves across the board, with exceptions of a Absolution, where he can babysit himself, and Rage, which is actually a very good damage move. He's got a good crit buff to go with that. His camp skills, although very powerful, they tend to be, these 3 specifically, tend to be very self-centered, so he offers no utility to the party in terms of camp skills. He also, this is a skill he likes to click a lot, and it has religious issues. It has issues with religious characters, and so that limits his party diversity. He's also very locked into position 2 for the reasons of beast and human form being, you want to switch between them sometimes, and his optimal position is therefore position 2. His trinkets only bring him up to average usability again. And so what do I rank the Abomination based on those criteria? I rank him as a lower C tier character. He's not very good in the fact that I feel like I lack flexibility with him. I feel like I lack a lot of stunning power, so I feel like I lack a lot of utility with him. So I find myself wanting to transform with him a lot to kind of make use of his stronger aspect, which is the beast form. But when I transform with him, it gives me stress problems, and I don't like that. I don't like all these decisions I have to make that are very painful as the Abomination in order to make him good. Alright, and that's probably the end of the video. Thank you for watching.